Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. It's 10 p.m., May the 25th, 2026. Welcome. Happy Memorial Day if you are in these United States. Welcome whenever, wherever you are. It's also Pope Gregory the Seventh feast day. If you're looking for that, go to censusfidelium.com. Check out the calendar tab. You'll see it. Dom Garanger. Obviously, you'll see Butler's Lives of the Saints. There's probably about 14 of them today. And you ever notice that nobody on Catholic social media ever talks about the saints of the day? It doesn't matter what goes on today. Today, obviously, the Pope Encyclical, that's going to be everyone's number one thing. Nobody cares, talks, ever. Watch it. Look at it. Look for the next couple days. You won't see any of the big name media and big name guys ever post about the saint of the day. It's always how much the church sucks, how much the Pope sucks. It's anything bad, it gets clicks. Anyway, so if you want to see about who the church, the saint of the day is, I post it every day. No one clicks it, but I post it every day. But Gregory the Seventh is today. Again, Butler's had a bunch of them today. And I think in the East, it's another St. John the Baptist feast day, I think, is the finding of the head, I think it is. Anyways, who cares? Forget about the piety stuff. We got to get the sexy stuff. All right, let's go. Yes, Pio was born today, May 25th, 1887. Again, nobody cares. Anyway, I'm being a little snarky. I know, yes. But anyway, let's get right to it. Hope you guys are doing well. Hi from down under. How is the prison country down there in the land down under? I haven't seen too many Aussie clips. Now, as I mentioned, let me do a quick search before we start getting going on here. See if I can find some. As Australian Channel 7, I was watched a lot. Australia 7, no, Channel 7. Let's see, Australia 7. There is 7 News. Let's see, anything going on down here? Baseball. You got baseball? Oh, why in the world you guys in Australia care about the Cubs game? It's literally on the 7 News reposted the Cubs game. Trump, sweltering conditions. Let's see, grandparents missing, 3-day search. You got Australia's missing a kid in South Australia. Okay. All right. Well, if you find anything, there's a cave in Laos. Okay, you got all kinds. There's nothing on Australia, in southern Australia. I think it's midnight in Australia. It's probably something out there. Anyway, let's get right to it. I forgot about this. A meteor streaked into Mayan volcano in the Philippines as the volcano was erupting. So there's supposed to be, and there it goes right there. So the volcano's erupting and a meteor came down and hit right behind it. Whoever was living around that volcano was having a really bad day. I don't know if you and me are pretty much it right there. That's it. That's all we got right there. That's you're the only ones to do it. Anyway, so yeah, meteor hit behind a volcano, and who knows what to think about that one? That's when you have 2 of those things happen at the same time. You know what that means? I don't really. So hopefully one of you guys can tell me what that means. Here's what I was joking with our Aussie friend who's pulling the all-nighter down there. It can't be 12 in the morning. It can't be 12 a.m. down there. It's lunchtime, 12 p.m. lunchtime. Did I say, who said that? There was someone said it was midnight. No. Yeah, it's 12 p.m. lunchtime there. Yeah, no, here it is. Yeah, if it's almost midnight, I almost bought that too. I was like, wait a minute, it's 10 o'clock here. They would be in the Bahamas if that was the case. There's not much news going on in Australia. There's 7-day forecast from Christie's Beach. Yeah, you guys are getting rain. We're getting rain. That's the only thing we got in common right now. Learning curve, terrifying post office robbery. They found a chicken, maybe a possum got eaten by a crocodile. A crocodile ate a crocodile. A dog ate a crocodile. A lot of stuff happens in Australia. Not too much right now. Something about Christmas Eve, a little late on the news, but hey, let's get into some Memorial Day stuff. No spoilers with the Encyclical. I know. Well, get ready. It's a 200-page book. Got published by Ascension's Press, I think. Wanjiro had to put up a post. She's always good to follow. On Memorial Day, we remember also the Black Confederates and all veterans who died defending the Southern cause. As the quote of him, Nelson Winboss would say, people ask why a Black person would fight for the Confederacy. It was the same darn reason the white Southerner did. I saw a great meme. It said the last time a U.S. soldier fought for freedom, he was wearing gray. Our trees are fine to fill out. Elizabeth, I don't know how you do it in Anchorage, in Alaska. When I lived in Colorado, a foreign land, I remember flying back from here to Colorado, and here was just, peaches, green, and I landed in Colorado, and it's just death. It's just still the trees, no blooming on there. I was like, yeah, this isn't pretty. I think Josh and Daniel are going to do a live stream video talking about the AI cyclical. Probably. I mean, Daniel's pretty good on AI. I mean, I know some other guys that are good on AI. Daniel's great. I mean, Daniel's great on UFOs. He knows the stuff on AI, but I mean, I only read clips. I didn't read a lot of the stuff. I got some clips from it and what they were just saying, and what he has said about it, what the powers that be said about it, and a couple other clips from the conference that they had. There's some good things that came out of it, but Lisa, we'll see. Oh yeah, I forgot the Real Estate for Life. If you're selling a home, Real Estate for Life, they'll help you out there. Call them up all throughout. I think they're all over the world. If you want to find a place in Poland, he could help you out. They're a great group of guys. If you don't know them, hit them up if you're looking to buy or sell a house. Brian McClanahan, this is the Confederate origins of Memorial Day. He had a great podcast. I think this was 2017. And, just a little bit of a reminder of everything here. If it wasn't because it was because of these guys that the women who first held Decoration Day was in Columbus, Georgia in 1866, that did so to honor the dozens of Confederate soldiers buried in Linwood Cemetery, which is still there. The guy that started Coca-Cola is still there, was buried there. This is soon replicated all across the South. There were all kinds of Decoration Days. Decoration Day means that you would put the flags out all over the all around the grave sites. And it was it a year after the Battle of Columbus? The Grand Army of the Republic copied the event in 1968, causing another Southern innovation to be co-opted by Yankee do-gooders. America soon honored Confederate Day as part of Memorial Day events, including those like President William McKinley, who wore the blue. Southerners eventually decided to hold separate Memorial Day remembrances in April as part of Confederate Memorial Day, which a lot of people get triggered about. They wanted as a people to reflect on the cost of war. The newly gained poverty was a daily reminder. There's a book called Punished by Poverty by the Kennedy twins. Talks about that. They were incredibly wealthy before the war and pretty much eating dirt after. But these wives, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, cousins, aunts, uncles, sons, and daughters of fallen heroes still burned with the flame of defiance. They put down their swords, but did not concede that their men were traitors, because they weren't. By the 1870s, no one north of the Mason-Dixie called them that anymore. They were as American as Lincoln, and it was not unfashionable well into the 20th century, even for the left, to honor Confederate soldiers as valiant and courageous men. This list includes every American president, from Teddy Roosevelt to Bill Slick Willie Clinton. Taking down monuments or removing a Confederate flag would have been an un-American as rooting for the Soviet Union to win the Cold War. But as Bernie Sanders demonstrated in 2016, being a Soviet stooge makes you a rock star in modern America. Perhaps that's why he's adopted the Soviet playbook. It's so easy for both the uneducated and university indoctrinated masses. Wish I could say something else to go with that. That it rhymes. Confederate memorials represent a roadblock in their crusade to eliminate Western civilization and rewrite American history. When all the Confederate monuments are gone or contextualized, where will the Leninists turn next? If the cultural Marxists want to divest themselves of Confederate imagery, then Memorial Day would eventually have to go too. After all, long after the war for Southern independence, the Confederate battle flag showed up on the battlefields from Europe to Asia to the Middle East. And that's right. If you look that up, you go, oh, you got racist, but the military used them as places like bases all throughout those wars. You can look them up. You can type it in Google search, blah, blah, blah. You'll see them all over the place like that. And one cool thing is during the war, I think it was is that McKinney? During the war, the women were extremely patriotic to the point of they would tell the men, I won't even talk to you unless you go fight. They would say things like, if I was a man, I would be fighting. And they did that in one sense because they loved their home, but also they knew that no one was going to go after them or, hit them, pop them, smack them, shoot them, etc. But during Reconstruction, that's exactly what the North did to, especially the women. They went after them hard. And McClanahan today, the "'Tis Not Our War" is a review of "'Tis Not Our War: Avoiding Military Service in the Civil War," stockpile books by Paul Taylor. Since the infamous 2020 Summer of Love riots and political escapades that resulted in a new wave of Confederate iconoclasm, Americans have reconsidered including Confederate heroes as worthy company in Memorial Day celebrations. This is ironic because without the dedicated service of Southern women, Memorial Day may not exist. And he gets into the lost cause list. There's the Northern righteous cause versus the evil Southern slave power made popular in the last few decades, with Trump himself publicly praising Robert E. Lee. But for many Americans, the war has to be about slavery, not for historical understanding, but because of modern politics. The Third Reconstruction cannot continue with a nuanced interpretation of the past. For example, what if the real myth of the war was Northern commitment to the conflict? What if Northerners, not Southerners, had little interest in the war and did more to shirk and openly resist than the people of the South? According to Paul Taylor, there might be some truth in this. In contrast to the nearly 75% of white male Southerners of military age that served in the Confederate cause, white Northern commitment never reached more than 40% of the total population, and many of them had to be subjugated to the war, like the Irish, who was forced in just to become citizens. This was buttressed by a large number of immigrants and later black military participation, but as Taylor explains, white Northerners dodged participating in the war effort from the beginning of the conflict. In fact, he writes that for nearly 2/3 of the North's white men of military age, not having to don a blue uniform became a paramount concern. This did not mean that many Northerners were committed to the war early in the conflict. In 1861, one Massachusetts citizen wrote, "I used to think it was only necessary in order that we might have a respectable country to exterminate about 4/5 of the population of the South." But after understanding that most Northerners were not as committed, this man now thought, quote, "The extermination of 3/5 of the North would have to be added in order to rid the whole country of its darn fools and cursed thieves and hypocrites." Clearly, mental illness was not just a modern problem among fanatical leftists. Taylor agrees with William Marvel that high unemployment and the prospect of a paycheck motivated a substantial number of Northerners to enlist in 1861. If not for the money, many Northerners would not have marched south. Taylor writes that though modern scholarship places slavery as central to our understanding of why the Civil War was fought, relatively few men who chose to enlist in the war's opening months did so with slavery's abolition as their primary motivation. Union, not slavery, led men to enlist, that along a not-so-subtle reminder that from Northern women that cowards would not be well received when courting. In fact, slavery may have driven some men to avoid joining the army. One Ohio housewife wrote to her son that, quote, "I would not mind freeing the Negroes if they could be sent off and not come back here again." For a large number of Northerners, blacks became a convenient way to avoid filling out the ranks. Their reasoning was simple. Why should they fight and die for the welfare of black people, free or slave? Taylor argues that almost all mid-19th century white Americans in the North or South simply took it for granted that white racial supremacy was the natural biological order in the same matter-of-fact way that they knew the sun would rise in the east. Any different treatment of blacks by whites required no unique clarification, and when one was offered, it was presented as a reasoned thought explaining an obvious reality. The New England Yankee abolitionist was viewed almost universally as a dangerous kook willing to tear down a blessed nation in order to elevate a degraded race. By the time of the war commenced in 1861, most of its participants, and especially the younger rank and file, had been born and raised in a culture to believe white supremacy to be God's and nature's ordained order. Taylor approved quotes from the defendant's argument. Pennsylvania wrote that there are some men here that would shoot Horace Greeley and Wendell Phillips as quickly as they would Jeff Davis or Beauregard. A New Yorker insisted that I did not come out here for the blanket or abolition of slavery, but much less to make the better white man or every day become an estimation and treatment of the powers of Washington. A soldier from Illinois asserted that I tell you, I did not come here to do such dirty work. Blacks served as companions every day in the Confederate Army and society at large. This was normal. Taylor also explains that slavery drove some Southerners to support that union because they believed slavery would be better protected by the United States than the Confederate States. This was especially true in the border states. Southern opponents of secession, there were many, who rallied to the Union cause ultimately felt deceived by Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. They joined the fight to save the Union, but as a slave-owning Union major from Kentucky, major from Kentucky wrote, quote, "We who are in the Army feel that we have been grossly deceived by the president and the party in power." This is a small section of the book, but Taylor correctly identifies the major theme of opposition to secession in 1861, slavery. When the Union Army occupied and burned Columbus, Georgia in 1865, one large pro-Union slaveholder felt betrayed by Union generals who freed his slaves. Because remember, like I said, they thought that you could stay, if you stayed in the Union, you would have been protected. Because again, the South was leaving, and they were thinking, "Oh, they're going to get rid." They were literally getting rid of slavery. Jeff Davis talked to, I think it was Spain, or was it England, or it was Spain, I think it was, and said, "You guys want? We can drop slavery tomorrow if you guys want to come with us." So they were all talking about getting rid of it. Just that, like, you guys don't want it. We're getting rid of it anyways. We'll do it now. Anyways, let's see. Yeah. Anyway, this kind of goes into a little bit more of what we're talking about here in a little bit. Also, there was a great. I wish I could play Waylon Jennings, Atlanta's Burning. You guys ever heard that? I put it up on Twitter earlier. Very, very cool song. I don't know. Let me see if I can play it. I don't know if I'll get dinged for that or not. Because I thought it was a cool song anyways. Let's see.
I left my home in Georgia, May of 63.
Beautiful song.
To come here to Virginia to fight for General Lee.
It's just YouTube. It'll just give me it won't give me a strike. It'll just tell me they can't do anything with it. But this is the thing about this is about the South was always called deserters. There was a high deserter rate, they said. And actually it's because, like he's about to say, he's up in Pennsylvania, Gettysburg, and he finds out that Sherman's down at his backyard trying to burn it down. So he has to go back and save his family. So they would do that all the time. The guys would come and go to go fight at home and then fight at the battlefield and go back and forth.
I can't fight this morning. I must be southward bound. 'Cause Jenny's in Atlanta. And Atlanta's burning down.
Anyway, it's a cool song. Just made me think about that. So check it out if you want to check out the rest of it. So maybe you won't get a strike yourself. But anyway, here's a Virginia flag across South today. Confederate flags were placed on graves ahead of Memorial Day services tomorrow. Blah blah blah. And you get it. You see what this says. Content warning. What do you think it can be? Sensitive content. Anybody have a guess what this could be? It's very, very graphic. X labeled this post as showing sensitive content. This is why it's on Clown Planet. It's because of this part. That's sensitive. YouTube. X blocked that. Called that sensitive content. Thanks, Elon. Here's in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, as Matt says, over 19 people are injured and 3 hospitalized at Black Bike Week after multiple fights caused a stampede. It ended in a mass casualty incident in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I've been there for that. What happened is a friend of mine was getting married, old pitching coach. And it was for his bachelor party. He wanted to go. He had a timeshare in North Myrtle Beach, Schooner 2, and none of us thought about it. It was the last weekend of May that he said he had it. So we get down there and no clue, and it was like the Rough Riders was doing a music video for the entire week. I mean. Do you remember the 7-Up commercial with what's his face? I forget his name. Orlando Jones. You talk about it looked like 2 big country hams. You seen Rough Rider videos? All that. We saw that. That was all that. We had a guy behind me had his window down. Somebody peeked in and goes, "Hey, you got some crack?" He rolled his window back up. Yeah, it was a week I won't forget. Let's just say that. And businesses shut down during this week there every year, and they get called racist for doing that. Yeah, it's just people, they just go down and tear the town up almost. I got family in Columbia and Greenville. Yeah, they don't have that in Columbia and Greenville. That's just a Myrtle Beach thing. But yeah, it's just, I don't know why that started. Anyway, ground beef prices have doubled in 10 years, 15% jump in 1 year alone. Since 1951, lowest numbers on record. I forgot. I can just play the guy.
Did this for more than 2 decades, starting Ranch Foods Direct back in 2000.
We've never had a lowered inventory. Since 1951, we've got the lowest numbers that are on record.
And the stats from the USDA back it up. This week, the organization processed 50,000 fewer cows than last year, almost 100,000 fewer than in 2024.
The reason we have so few cows right now is because we've gone through decades of liquidation, decades of ranchers going out of business and getting rid of the cow herds.
Part of the reason why Callicrate says smaller ranchers are leaving the business is the rising price of everything, from gas to transport meat to the plastic used to keep it fresh, and the weather certainly hasn't helped.
We've just got such terrible weather conditions that are impacting us, on top of the fact that we just don't have fair markets.
Local restaurants haven't been able to skirt high prices either.
When we first started the skirted heifer, we were paying just over $4 a pound in 2014. And I mean, even in 2024, I was paying $6 per pound, and now I'm officially paying $8 a pound.
Kevin McGeary, the owner of the skirted heifer, says their profit margins have never been thinner.
I'm petrified of raising my menu prices because I know if I'm feeling it, I know my consumers are. And it's one of those things that I know at the end of the day.
This for more than 2 decades, starting Ranch Food.
Old Northwoods Wine, my friends there. By the way, the Ripperger wine, Father Ripperger's wine, is now out for purchasing. So that's it right here. If you want it, 50% of the profits, up to 50%, goes to the Delorme Fathers of the Society of Most Sorrowful Mother. And they got the Deliverance Melbeck, made in Columbia Valley, Washington. So again, if you wanted to help out Father Rips and have some wine, oldnorthwoodswine.com, and you'll have that taken care of. And yes, Doomsday, I saw that you said that they do go to Myrtle Beach on occasion. Yeah, I mean, Charleston's better. I've been to Myrtle Beach twice, I think, since I was 8. One was my bud's bachelor party. Another time was with my in-laws down there. It's different, but I mean, what's his face? The boardwalk is that was new. That was pretty good, but I mean, you don't go there with kids. What's the website for Father Ripperger's wine? I'll put it in the chat. How about that? It's you guys right here. It's oldnorthwoodswine.com. I haven't had Melbeck before. I'll be interested try it myself. I don't think I've ever had that. I'm not a wine guy. I mean, I'll have it, but I mean, if you give it to me, I'll have it. But if someone asked me, like a wine tasting, I've been to a wine tasting before because when I was living with a family. I don't know why I was doing it, just for a couple months, and they took me in just to let me live there for a little bit, and they took me to a wine. They were upscale, all the nice area of Columbia, and took me to a wine tasting, and I was like, I don't know, they all taste good. I was just going down the list and like, yeah, this good. Well, the Wall Street Journal, Pope Leo compares AI threat to biblical Tower of Babel. The head of the church is leading his moral suasion to a growing backlash against the impact of AI. So, where is it at? The primary choice is not between yes or no to tech, but rather between constructing Babel or rebuilding Jerusalem. In the Bible, Tower of Babel. Okay, let's go. Leo sees the change of AI as a choice about its design and about who gets to make those choices. Let's see. Artificial intelligence needs to be disarmed, free from the logic that turned it into an instrument of domination, exclusion, and death. It must be a service to all and for the common good. Meeting the popes come around. Okay, growing backlash. Yeah. Let's see. Now, if he's talking, I don't know what he means by disarmed unless it's about war. I mean, because you think about like Palantir had Lavender and all these other things that can look at AI. They use AI to target individuals, find and then target for destruction, or they can program, go after DNA uploaded, flock cameras. Obviously, everything that you've seen from Home Depot to Lowe's to Palantir and all that, AI has been used as a weapon in a sense. So I get that. Yeah, Cabernets are good too. The Cabernet that Old Northwoods has is fantastic. I think that one's for St. John Cancius. So if you get the Cabernet, you help out St. John Cancius.
I want to thank all of you for being here today, for your interest. I sincerely thank those who have organized this meeting today, and especially those who have shared their competence and experience in the different reflections that we have listened to. In a special way, I'd like to thank Mr. Ola for accepting our invitation. In turn, in the name of the Church, I accept your invitation to walk together, to listen and to speak, and together to find the way for humanity in this time of artificial intelligence. What a great sign of hope it is that with our differences, we can listen to one another. This interchange clearly bespeaks the gravity of the moment, as well as confidence that together we can discern the major questions of our time, and so the future of humanity. At key moments in history, the Church is called to decipher the new things in the light of the gospel and the dignity of the human being. 135 years ago, my venerable predecessor, Leo XIII, observed the situation of factory workers, their families uprooted, and new forms of poverty generated by rapid industrial transformation. He understood that the Church could not remain distant. Within an epochal turning point menacing human dignity, the Encyclical Rerum Novarum spoke its evangelical and social word about new things underway. Today, we find ourselves facing a transformation of similar magnitude, with perhaps even greater consequences. Artificial intelligence already touches many areas of our lives and affects decisions that shape human coexistence. It is also dramatically changing how war is waged. Like the earlier Leo, I feel entrusted to look upon another huge transformation with eyes of faith, with lucidity of reason, with openness to mystery, and with cries of the poor and the earth resounding in my heart. Magnifica Humanitas was born from listening, like Leo XIII did. I've listened to scientists and engineers who work with sincere enthusiasm on technologies capable of alleviating immense suffering, to political leaders and public officials who have perseveringly sought just rules, to parents and teachers who are deeply concerned for the future of younger generations. Other very troubling voices have also reached me about increasingly autonomous weapons systems, practically beyond any human reach to govern them effectively. I hear very troubling accounts of algorithms that can block access to healthcare, employment, and security on the basis of data tainted by prejudice and injustice. And I've heard the silence of those who have no voice when decisions are made. Decisions likely to generate new forms of exclusion and suffering. From this listening matured a disturbing conviction expressed in Magnifica Humanitas. Artificial intelligence needs to be disarmed. The word is
So everybody was talking. I remember I saw Off Guardian ask, what does that mean by disarmed? He obviously, the guys at Off Guardian obviously did not read or listen to anything beforehand when he talks about this, literally that, the weapons, everything that's going on, targeting of individuals through AI, the weapons system through AI. A lot of problems coming through with the AI from Lavender, Palantir, and Palantir's Lavender. What was the other one they called? It was called like a daddy killer. Oh man, I can't remember the name of it. But they were used in Israel, and then you see all the Israeli ones that I showed. Remember months ago before the war started about all these products they were using, scanning phones, going through the eyeglass things, everything like that.
strong, I know, but deliberately chosen because this moment needs words capable of attracting attention, awakening consciences, and indicating paths forward for humanity. The Church has long been working for nuclear disarmament, aware that every great technical power can affect people's lives, and so must be accompanied by adequate moral discernment and public control. Nuclear disarmament remains a service to peace and the dignity of the human family. In a similar sense, artificial intelligence now demands to be disarmed, freed from logics that turn it into an instrument of domination, exclusion, and death. Like nuclear energy, it must be at the service of all and of the common good. Decisions about technology must never be separated from conscience and responsibility. Let us not sleep as others do, admonished the Apostle Paul, but let us keep awake. Such vigilance is necessary today. Peace, not merely the absence of war, is justice at work. But when technology weakens our critical sense, peace itself is at risk. Disarming, however, is not enough. We must build. The word build reminds me of my years as a missionary in Peru. In 2017, torrential rains and floods struck the north of the country. Many families saw their homes swallowed by mud, and many roads too. There I learned that rebuilding does not mean simply replacing what has been destroyed. It means repairing bonds, restoring trust, and reawakening hope in the future. Moreover, no one rebuilds alone. In Magnifica Humanitas, I recall the biblical prophet Nehemiah. Before the ruined walls of Jerusalem, he gathers discouraged people to bring about rebirth. The image of walls does not legitimize closures or divisions, but invites each and every one to do their part. Brick by brick, a more just coexistence takes shape, capable of safeguarding the dignity of all. Nehemiah's effort speaks to our time. Artificial intelligence can be a construction site of history from within a horizon of communion in which technical progress learns to serve human life. Let each builder choose with care how to build, warned St. Paul. He does not fear the work site. Rather, he warns against building without solid foundations. Let's not fear artificial intelligence, but constantly keep the question of the human in play. We cannot be
That's a great line, by the way. Keep human in play.
careless with our most powerful technical instruments. True development, says St. Paul VI, always concerns each man and the whole man. Each means that no person can be left at the margins of digital transformation. Whole means that no one can be reduced to productivity, to cognitive performance, or to mere data. The person bears within him or herself a freedom, an interiority, and the vocation to love and worship that no machine can replace or block. Only with such an integral vision can artificial intelligence be directed toward the common good. Only together, those who design systems and those affected by them, richer countries and poorer ones, institutions and individuals, power centers and peripheries, will we be able to build a future not for a privileged few, but for the entire human family.
That's a good one.
This is the civilization of love, which St. Paul VI spoke and which St. John Paul II so forcefully proclaimed is a horizon to seek together. It's not a naive dream. It is a direction. It is the path that Jesus Christ opens within history. For this reason, the Church wishes with humility and frankness to be part of conversations on artificial intelligence. We do not possess the technical answers, nor do we seek to displace those with expertise. But we bring a wisdom concerning the human that our present time desperately needs. Every person is unique and irreplaceable, a free and intelligent subject with a conscience, capable of seeking God, serving one another, and caring for our common home. I therefore invite all members of the Church and of the human family, let us learn to listen to one another, face the present challenges with courage, and cooperate in building a more human and fraternal society. From this launch of Magnifica Humanitas, please take with you a commitment to stay awake and as artisans of hope to keep on building the worksite of our time. May the Spirit of the risen Lord sustain our work together. I entrust each of you to our Mother Mary, Her Magnificat sings of the greatness of God who uplifts the lowly. May she teach us to recognize the true greatness of every man and every woman in loving and serving. May the Lord make fruitful the great enterprise that today we entrust to his grace, letting the civilization of love mature in history. And upon all of you, I heartily invoke God's blessing.
So, I mean, obviously there wasn't 200 pages worth. Now, most people who have already commented claim they have read all 200 pages of the encyclical, and I don't know. I'm going to push the BS lever on that. If you read 200 pages in a couple hours, I don't think you read it. And there's a lot of guys that have already done threads on X. Post Life Size already posted up. I mean, they had a headline of Pope doesn't bring up equals Jesus as mere human. I had a friend of mine did a keyword search, and he saw right off the bat there was 4 times when the encyclical mentions Christ as God. So I don't know what a lot of guys were looking at. Some guys just want to hate just to hate. That, I mean, you got to remember, there's some people that are just going to say they're going to be biased no matter what. Leo could have come in and said technocracy is terrible. Well, if he would have said that, then the MAGA crowd would have gone mad too. So it just, there's nothing he could have said that would have appeased a lot of these guys. But yes, what he was talking about with the disarmament, because I was wondering too, that was the first time I listened to it. When he was talking about the disarming it, you're talking about Palantir, big time. So he went right after Peter Thiel. I guarantee that was what he was thinking of. And because I think I have a link on Peter Thiel being upset about that. He went after, that was after Lavender and all the, again, you've seen what Lavender does, the targeting people with AI. You see what Flock targeting people with AI, all this stuff that's coming out. Stargate, day one of the Trump administration, which started under Obama, given to Brandon, given to Trump. Stargate's all about this stuff. So no, it's, again, and the guys that are hating on him that I've seen online are big time DJT homers, cheerleaders, all that stuff. So maybe there's a connection on that. I don't know. It is funny that the sedevacantist are so big Trump disciples. You can't talk to those guys without getting their panties in a wad about DJT. I've had a couple guys block me because they can't take it anymore. So yeah, it's, be careful about what you're seeing online already. There's a lot of guys just trash just to trash. Again, I haven't read the whole thing, but that was a great clip when he's talking about, keep the human involved. Disarmed because of the war, because of the pain, the targeting of individuals. Everything that's going on with the technocrats right now is horrific. There's nothing good coming from the technocrats right now on this. Yeah, he actually does mention Jesus. Yes, in the Bosom of Mary. I haven't read even one word in the encyclical, but the speech was good. Yes, Tennessee too. I can't say a negative thing about that 13-minute speech. Again, I haven't read the encyclical. Here's some quotes from it coming up here. Actually, here's the post from Leo from Pontifex on X. In the era of AI, when human dignity is threatened by new forms of dehumanization, yes, ours is the pressing duty to remain profoundly human, 100%. We must lovingly safeguard the grandeur of humanity bestowed upon us and revealed in the fullness of Christ, in its fullness in Christ, the splendor of which no machine can ever replace. I mean, we start, is that triggering anybody? I don't know. Late to the Clown Planet News Party, tuning in from York, South Carolina. Cody, you're probably about 5 minutes away from me. I'm right across. If you know where Drift is, I'm just north of Drift. Thanks for framing things, providing adequate history, context, and clown world events. Yeah, I guarantee you're down. I go down the if you know where Bush and Vine, I was there Friday just getting up milk. I get about 10 gallons of milk every 2 weeks. What's my take on Just War being out there? I didn't see what I saw, the highlights from people posting on it. send me a link on it and I'll bring it up. I think I have a link on it, but I haven't read about it. Most of the times when this is coming up, this is the first time I'm looking at things. So I'm going with everything else that I've seen before. So like that was the first time I watched that video. Most of the times I'm taking chances on it, or I'm going to play it and we're going to talk about it anyways. The last chapter of war is interesting. I saw the slavery thing too. That's coming up soon here. Let's see. Here's a good one. Let's see.
Today's sophisticated technologies are not mere tools, but tools that, like the languages they harvest, carry cultures and bear moral architectures. Magnificat Humanitas notes that the powers of innovation that have traditionally resided with states are today concentrated in the hands of a few wealthy individuals, whose cultures are concealed from common good scrutiny and risk appearing as a new imperium. Pope Leo prompts us to ask, in the interest of the common good, how can we resist such distorted concentrations of power in the hands of the few?
Yeah.
How can we re-engage technologies as a matter of the common good, accountable to the good of every human and all humanity? Magnificat Humanitas acknowledges that many of us, perhaps including in this room today, do not feel confident to.
I wish I kept going. Needed a longer one. Professor Rollins confirms global power has completely shifted from sovereign states to a few tech billionaires. 100,000%. And even those sovereign states are too big. What has been the key thing that we've talked about? Decentralization. The McClanahan idea of act locally, think locally. Decentralization. Key to all this stuff. Yes, pretty much, Otto. That's pretty much 100% on that. She exposes how elites secretly embedded their own agendas in AI and build a terrifying new digital imperium to dominate humanity. That's exactly what we think the technocrats are. This is exactly the technocratic system. So yes, so far I'm 100% with everything that's going on, because a lot of guys that are blasting this, maybe they don't know a lot of what technocracy is. How many people are outside? How many people outside this circle has even spoken at the North American Technate? So what's going on? That's why Greenland. That's why Panama. That's why Colombia. That's why Ecuador. That's why they're going after Cuba. This is all about the North American Technate. Again, that's from the earlier days. The technocrats are all in 100% for pedal to the metal right now. Yes, no, JD isn't just a big Thiel supporter. Yeah, he's a protege. Thiel, if JD is still in Ohio, flipping burgers or whatever he did before that, if it wasn't for Thiel pretty much funding his program. So Thiel owns Vance. Huge is an understatement to that. See if I have any more of her. Yeah, here's one. Yeah, Palantir, combine this. Yeah, student debt, Social Security, all that stuff. Let's see, I was hoping to have a full speech. Oh, there's full speech in it? How long is the speech? Oh, that's just a photo. Oh, here's the thing right here. Why is that on there? Pope Francis. Anna Rome's full speech. Francis calls getting like the love. Church was served a lifetime. What? I don't know. I don't get what the dude was there. Rise the Thiel verse. Okay, so I wish I could. If in my hands the full speech of her, please send it to me. I don't know where. Yeah. Byline times domestic terrorism, ICE contractor, Palantirs, tools for tracking dissident. Yes. I have this coming up, but why not? Oh, I don't have that up there. My fault. I don't have the. What happened to the link? Wrong one. Hold on. I got the wrong thing playing right now.
If we can get more and more Americans to think about growing with the United States,
Thank 100%.
we will have far than enough money to invest in this infrastructure. But as the governor was talking about, the need for electrons is growing every day. Some of these, if we're going to be the leader in technology, which we are, if we are going to be the leader in AI, which we presently are, it's just going to require trillions of dollars of investments. And if we don't invest in it, China will be the global leader in this.
Always got to throw the
So
China
to me, it's
scare.
not whether. This is a must. And if you think about how that translates, it translates into a more dynamic economy. We need the United States economy to grow at over 2%. We need the U.S. economy to grow at 3%, especially with the growing deficits the federal government has. And so much of this money, not just the project, is going to be coming from the private sector, from savings accounts, from pension accounts, from insurance companies, and on and on and on. The whole world is in need of improving the infrastructure.
Decentralization, way to go.
The first is our duty to the global poor. There is a real possibility that AI will displace human labor at a very large scale.
100%.
If that happens, supporting those displaced will be a moral imperative of historic proportions. This task will be difficult enough, but I worry most dialogue misses an even harder challenge. AI development is concentrated in a handful of wealthy nations. How will we ensure that the gains of AI are shared globally? We do not have a mechanism for this. It is an unsolved problem. And it is the kind of problem the church has historically refused to let the world ignore. The second is the need for moral imagination and ambition regarding human flourishing. If AI models are going to be widespread, what does it look like for?
Man, I wish they
The
had
first
those longer
is our duty to the
periods.
global poor.
Just as a minute of hers. Just seeing if there's any bigger things on there. I know, I mean, they had a big thing on. I watched a little bit of it this morning, but I think I caught the ending and I didn't see any of these. All right, here's the just war thing. Here's Michael Hayes writes that the Catholic teaching on just war theory is now outdated. So I guess it says today more than ever, without prejudice to the right to self-defense in the strictest sense, it is important to reaffirm that a just war theory, which has often too been used to justify any kind of war, is now outdated. Okay, using that quote itself, which is, so if I'm reading that in the way he's thinking, then he's just saying that people that are using the just war theory to come up with any kind of war they want, which has been done with the Iran war, then it's outdated. Then, if that's the case, that's what he's saying on there. Because it said, without prejudice to the right of self-defense in the strictest sense, because there was no self-defense in the offensive war against Iran, it is important to reaffirm that the just war theory, which has too often been used to justify any kind of war. So that's when people are going, oh, just war theory is outdated. Okay, well, the line in between is important then. If that is the case, and they're using just war theory to justify any kind of war, is then outdated. Okay, I get that if that's the case. Today, more than ever, without prejudice to the right to self-defense. Let's read a little bit beforehand there. To all this, the media and digital dimensions are adding new and decisive elements. Communication networks, fragmented information environments, and algorithms that reward conflict can magnify polarization and resentment, increase propaganda, and make shared discernment more difficult. Thus, war is not only fought, but also culturally conditioned through simplistic narratives, a friend or foe mentality, disinformation, and fear. Yeah, that's for sure. When historical memory fades and the ethical principles that protect civilians, if I can read, and the most vulnerable are weakened, it becomes easier to justify violence as necessary, inevitable, or even sanitized. Good. It is in this context that humanity is slipping into a violent culture of power where peace no longer appears as the responsibility to be taken on, but as a fragile interval between conflicts. Okay, yeah. Today, more than ever, without prejudice to the right to self-defense in the strictest sense, so I mean self-defense, period. Close the book, 100% or bust. It is important to reaffirm that the just war theory, comma, which has all too often been used to justify any kind of war, is now outdated. Okay, so if you're going to go with that on outdated because everyone's evolved the rules, what they're doing for all this, and then you throw in AI and all this. Humanity possesses far more effective and capable tools for promoting human life and resolving conflicts, such as dialogue, diplomacy, and forgiveness. The use of force, violence, and weapons reflects a relational poverty that always has disastrous consequences for civilian populations. Okay, I'm looking at it maybe as in just a thought. Why not fight AI rather than worry who's leading it? Well, just like anything else, it's a good tool. I use it for a lot of good. There's a lot of I use it for a lot of different things. It's just like a gun. A gun's a good tool, but in the hands of the wrong person, it can be bad. A knife, a baseball bat, a car. It's a tool. Now, can you use it for good and bad? The problem is more people are using it for bad. Not sure outdated is the correct word. I think I tend to agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. The outdated might not have been it's like the Joker. Poor choice of words. Might not have been the best choice of word. I understand what he's talking about, but yeah, I don't think that was the best wording per se. I do get it because you bring in AI, you bring in everything else, you bring in these leaders that do not care, that are funded by Zionists, but funded by outside influence, that are lying through the teeth, all that stuff. And they don't care about right or wrong. They just want to kill people just because. You look at Gaza from the Gaza genocide. You look at what's going on with Iran, calling that just war. You look at Iraq, and you talk about the just war in Iraq. Oh, we're going to do it because they said so. You look at what they're doing really with everything. Bombing Somalia. Who was it? Was it Bill Kaufman had his book back in 2010? Man, he had it's like 300 wars. Not 300 wars. It was 300 days. It was some nutty number about battles that were going on across the globe. And we in the U.S. was in like 80 of them or something like that. And the problem, we have a data that requires damage. It will do jobs, the environment. It's harder for me to see any good in it. They're in a way constructing a digital God. It's more that they're constructing a digital gulag is what the powers that be are doing. I mean, if you use AI for like a research tool, you got to make sure you do your due diligence. Don't just type in something and take it for 100% thing because it can err. But if you use it for research, fantastic. If you use it to create something, fantastic. I've used it to help in the garden. Fantastic. It's done some great stuff. It's had some good advice. I've asked it from different things like, hey, what do you think about this? And we have like a dialogue. We'll have a back and forth pitching ideas. My wife's used it to help rearrange the room. What do you think this could go like? It's done pretty good stuff. It's a good tool. I even asked the hell, what do you think about making a couple drinks? Here's some ingredients. What do you think about this? Food-wise, what do you think about this? What do you identify? Because I know some herbs and I'm just testing it out. What do you think this is? And it will nail it. I'm like, all right, it's good. It's on. Yeah, it has a tendency to just flat out lie too. Yes, it. People who have asked it for saint quotes and it will just make up some stuff. So yes, don't take it as 100%. It's good. It's got some good stuff in it, but again, not 100%. But is it 100% evil? No. And this is coming from a guy that thinks thinks that they're going to try to do Skynet us or anything like that. So yeah, I understand. Here's
in things for which she doesn't have competence, that's a poor formulation. Let me read you something. A church that walks alongside humanity, recognizing the autonomy of earthly realities and the distinction between ecclesial and political communities. So you can think back traditionally to this two-sword theory, that the church has her authority and that the state has her authority, and that there's meant to be a mutual enrichment of one and the other. So the church is meant to exercise a certain influence on society, not in that she was founded for that purpose, but in that she has this prophetic mission, and her testimony.
If you know the two-sword theory, I have that on the channel. Dr. Allen and I did that a couple times.
Is addressed to society for its renewal, right? For its salvation. The church doesn't want to end up sounding anti-science, anti-progress, anti-world. So there's some careful qualifications here in this first chapter. And then we hear him describe Catholic social teaching or Catholic social doctrine, not just a bunch of ad hoc pronouncements on this thing or that thing or the other thing, whether social or political or economic. Rather, he's going to direct our attention to the principles that guide the interpretation of events and sustain an evangelical understanding of what's happening now. He describes it as a foundation for collective discernment, a theology of communion in history. And then he'll go through a development of Catholic social teaching, and he'll focus on some of the documents that I already mentioned, and then pepper in further documents like non-anniversary documents, highlighting like Vatican II, so Gallium et Spes being big, Dignitatis Humanae being big, Pacem in Terris, Popolorum Progressio, which I made mention of. So there have been a number of documents, and we can think recently of Caritas in Veritate by Benedict XVI, Laudato Si, Fratelli Tutti as conscious contributions to Catholic social doctrine. Chapter 2 is entitled Foundations and Principles of the Social Doctrine of the Church. We're going to treat the things which function after the manner of principles in Catholic social teaching or Catholic social doctrine. A principle is just that from which something else flows in any way whatsoever. So what we're talking about here is like the headwaters of Catholic social doctrine, which flow into the different currents.
Hey, just to see you guys in the chat. Hey, Matt, thanks, man. How you doing? Baron, yeah, rat poison. Yeah, I get it. That's also heresy. I mean, heresy is that too. That's the line used on heresy. If there's 0.0% of heresy, you take it. I don't see how AI is rat poison though. Hey there says they try to blackmail people when threatening to be shut down. You know how you shut down AI? You pull the plug. It's not sentient. You just pull the plug if they want to do that. But an EMP that's gone. So it's it can talk all the smack at once. It's just a computer at the end of the day.
Of our contemporary lives. It refers first to the foundations, namely like the dignity of the human person, and then the value of human rights, and then it'll talk about the principles. They're referring to the common good, subsidiarity with mention of participation, solidarity, and then it picks out another one, social justice. So if you've read the compendium of the social doctrine of the church, you'll recognize this list. Typically we'll go dignity of the human person, common good, universal destination of goods, subsidiarity, participation, and solidarity. Those 6 come in for considerable commentary, but these other ones they feature in. So yeah, a somewhat novel arrangement, but no revolution happening here, something in continuity with what has gone before. When he talks about social justice in particular, he says, social justice is therefore characterized by the capacity of a social, economic, and political order to allow everyone, particularly the weakest, to live a truly dignified life without leaving.
Elon question. You think Elon is able to launch all those AI data centers into space? He's got more satellites up in the air right now than anything in the. I mean, there was an article a couple months ago about the incredible number of satellites that Elon's got up, all thanks to Starlink. Again, everyone's like, "Hey, we get Starlink. We got Starlink. I got Starlink here." Yes, we got all these satellites. Elon's a technocratic nut job as well, and that whole ruse about him and Trump having a little fight, yeah, that was all just a act. He was at the last meeting. They were all together. They'll be blocking the sun soon. They've been talking about doing that for the last year or so. So yeah, they're working on stuff like that. I mean, just like the whole thing bunker at the White House. That bunker is for them. It ain't for you. It ain't for me. It's for them. And they can kill us all. And then they're trying to do their own thing. I mean, that was like Ted Turner. Ted Turner did some cool things for other things, but he was a Malkianist. He was a Malkianist. I mean, he wanted to get rid of people. There's a lot of these guys that want to get rid of people.
anyone behind. He has in mind here the fact that you'll have structures of sin which crop up throughout our human history, which is kind of the heart of the matter. Talks about technology and dominance. It goes on to describe itself as the grandeur of humanity in light of the promises of AI. So again, a largely positive vision in the sense that we're looking to the grandeur of humanity.
And Dank, really, they're already there. I mean, Governor Petraeus talked about your dishwasher, was it dishwasher or oven, was spying on you back then. And then you talk about everything else that's gone in, the TVs, your smart meters, which if you have a house, never get a smart meter or get rid of it. Yes, your cell phone, we jokingly call a cell phone already a tracking device. Your car's got a kill switch coming in, and it's got a tracking device coming in. Hence, Massey was one of those guys going after it. Again, decentralization. You kill off all this other stuff by decentralization. You decentralize so much that is back into the days when, like in North Carolina, there's a museum about an hour away, a car museum, a train car museum. They used to make 50 different cars. And then the big dogs took over, survival of the fittest. And now you get what? You get pretty much the same car, looks like the same thing over and over, and 5 different cars to do it. There's all kinds of stuff. People just like, you want to talk about, I'm all for a free market. Well, let the market decide. Then get everyone in the game. They come up with a car that runs on air, water, food, whatever. But no, you can't do that anymore. They will end up kicking you out. Hence why, like in Florida, I'm not for the fake meat, but Florida banned the fake meat because the real meat guys paid them off. That's not, I mean, and then the money on the meat department goes up higher. We were just cooking the place. No, trust me, I get that too. I do get that too. Again, but it goes into decentralized. You got down here in Florida right now, you got Fishback saying that he will get rid of all digital data centers, ban CBDC, ban digital ID. You think he's not the favorite. The Trump guy is Byron, who's for the data centers, for DCBDC, all that stuff. The guys that are little guys are fighting this stuff. So yeah, it goes back to decentralization. How many guys are in DC wanting, helping out? Ain't none. The only people that are fighting this is at the local level. You've seen the many cities and towns going after it, killing it off at the local level. That's it. That's how you beat this. And again, most people are complacent because they don't want to fight it. Most of the guys, especially the talking heads, they were just like, hey, yeah, we'll just vote harder in 2 years. Make sure you vote GOP now. Wait a minute. When Stargate come in, again, it started with Obama, but he got $500 billion from the team, red team. Blue team, red team, it doesn't matter. Palantir is in blue team, red team. Palantir is in the White House. Again, how you get rid of the Palantir in the White House? You get rid of DC. Bye-bye. And you get a little out of it, but no one wants to do that. But hey, we got Independence Day coming up, but we don't want to do independence.
Humanity. So we have in mind the dignity of the human person, rights and duties attendant upon that dignity, the promise of humanity as it concerns, like the glory of God and the salvation of souls. But there's also a somewhat negative vision in that we recognize that with these technological advances, our humanity is at risk, and that we lack the power to navigate these things when left to our own devices because we tend to be selfish, right? We tend to be bent in on ourselves. So he alerts us to the kind of prevailing technocratic paradigm. When we begin to govern our lives on the logic of efficiency, control, and profit, there are going to be certain human factors which are left out of the equation, and we as a result will suffer. When technology becomes the standard, then it begins to dictate to us what matters, rather than having a sense of what matters and then employing the technology to the end of the upbuilding or the edification of the kingdom of God. So when the technology begins to dictate the terms, it's like, oh, we got to keep advancing the technology. We got to keep progressing with the technology.
Yeah, and so that's what he's talking about is pretty much the technology is running you instead of you running the tech.
Then we just become cogs in the machine or cogs in the wheel. And then there's a real risk there of like exploitation, just being ground under, chewed up, and spit out. So he alerts us to the fact that artificial intelligence can lead to the spreading of this technocratic paradigm. And as a result of which, it requires careful discernment on the part of us, the human community, its practitioners. We need to recognize that this tool, designed by us, shaped by us, programmed by us, is not necessarily neutral. All right. So it can be programmed in one way or another, better ways or worse ways. Mm-hmm. It may bear the bias of those who program it. It can also kind of reflect back on us things that we need to be cognizant of. Like, if it makes life really easy, then we got to be cognizant of the fact that we're getting addicted to easy life. Or if it would seem to communicate in interpersonal terms, we need to be conscious of the fact that it's not a replacement for genuine interpersonal communion. So there's ways in which the tools themselves can lead to the undermining of our humanity, and we need to be cognizant of that.
You got guys that are making AI. I mean, you see how many TV shows that talk to like a dead person, or like, remember that video from a couple months ago when you video your grandparent before they die, or your mom before they die, and then you can play them on your phone and talk to them like they exist, and they don't exist. It's literally a AI representation that you're talking to. There was a video of him, the kid, of one woman videoing her mom before she had a baby, and then playing it to the kid, and you see the kid progress in age up to college, and he's still talking to his dead grandma on a cell phone.
So the document calls for responsibility, transparency, which is to say, like, what's actually going on here? You know, we have some sense as
100%.
to the program, as to the algorithm, as to how like stochastic processes of machine learning work by back propagation, but a lot of it is obscure to us. So we need to invest, and we need to inquire, and we need to actually know what it is that we're dealing with. So he says, we cannot be satisfied with merely calling for the moralization of machines, the so-called alignment of AI with human values, without also having the courage to insist on a further condition, the possibility of openly discussing the ethical frameworks involved and subjecting them to shared standards of social justice. One thing that he says throughout the document is that we need to, quote unquote, focus on disarmament, which is to say we need to free this whole process from the appearance of competition, like armed competition. He'll write, to disarm means discrediting the assumption that technical power automatically confers the right to govern. To disarm does not mean rejecting technology, but preventing it from dominating humanity. It means freeing technology from monopolistic control and opening it to discussion and debate, therefore making it human-friendly and restoring it to the plurality of human cultures and ways of life. There's a real drive to...
I don't know. I think he missed the technocracy, the Palantir aspect of that, the disarm meaning literal weapons on that. I see what he's talking about on that, but I think he missed that one on the literally being weapons, disarm literally.
Progress, so there's a real drive to improve the technology, and often enough it's profit which is dictating that drive, or it's profit which is in fact driving that impetus. And we need to be conscious of the fact that like people are going to suffer as a result of our rapacious greed, or people are going to suffer as a result of the fact that we're not actually thinking about what the technology does to us, provided that we can control it, provided that we can manipulate it, provided that we ourselves can profit from it. So there's a real risk here of losing sight of the human factor to which he is directing our attention. We can't kind of in the process enshrine an anti-human vision as to what constitutes human flourishing, because then we'd just be at cross purposes with ourselves. Also, there are certain assumptions too in this progressive narrative, that is to say the narrative of progress, which seem to be anti-human, like this idea that you can eliminate weakness, or that you can eliminate uncertainty, or that you can exert total control.
It goes into the transhumanism idea. Yuval Harari, if you read his stuff, very anti-human in the sense of what he's talking about too. And I mean, Harari talks about Klaus Schwab thought about that, the merging of the digital and the physical.
Or you can bring about a time of bounty in which no one will want for anything. Like a lot of this is end timesy, eschatological in its description. And the fact of the matter is that that's not what Christ did. Like Christ entered our human condition. He himself had less. He experienced weakness. He suffered. He went through the anguish and agony of a life along the way, and he gave up control. He ceded control. So when the promise of AI advancement begins to sound anti-gospel, that should raise some at least yellow flags, perhaps some red flags for us. We as a human species are not simply to be optimized or maximized. We're to be saved. So we need to be on the lookout for salvation. So in the context of this conversation, he'll talk also about transhumanism and post-humanism, this idea of like advanced humans or human-machine hybrids. But he'll say they effectively amount to an anti-humanism. We need to be willing to operate within limitations, to ourselves undergo the suffering, which is just part and parcel of the human condition, but to bear it up with love, to transform it.
Otto nailed it on that. That's, yes, the latest version of eugenics, 100% on that one.
with love. All right, so chapter 4 then, we are almost at the end, is about safeguarding humanity at a time of transformation, subtitled Truth, Work, and Freedom. So here we focus on the crisis of truth, the crisis of work, and the crisis of freedom. Basic idea is that truth is a common good, and so we should be good stewards of it. So we need to build up an ecology of communication, be on the lookout for disinformation, especially problematic with non-symbolic AI, which is doing these statistical or probabilistic judgments. So, about hallucinations, stuff like that, but also the way in which the data is marshaled it's the type of thing for which we need to be on the lookout. Disinformation, that is. So we need to work towards transparency, safeguard privacy, and then
yeah, you don't think the drones will find you. You just got to learn how to shoot them out of the sky.
Implement a kind of pedagogy or education in the way in which we utilize.
That is, if they're big enough to shoot out of the sky.
These tools, because if kids are exposed to them at a young age, they're just going to get eaten alive. So we need to be good stewards of the technology. Then I'll talk about the value of work. So obviously, AI is putting a lot of people out of their jobs, or it's transforming the workplace, whereas formerly you were a computer programmer, now you're a prompt engineer. So we need to recognize the right and the duty to work, not in the sense that we are all comrades in the communistic system, but in the sense that work is a way in which we build out our human dignity. That is to say, it gives us the wherewithal to actually be about our human dignity. So we need to be conscious of the fact that AI can really de-skill us. That is to say, we're going to lose certain human competences if we're not careful. So we should be using it in a way to refine our human agency, not replace our human agency. The last then is protecting freedom against dependencies and commercialization. It alerts us to the fact of digital addiction, the way in which these technologies can exploit weakness and here on the surface of the earth, an opportunity for encounter and mutual care. So here he talks a lot about war, okay, and the way in which weapons can be made more deadly, lethal, potentially destructive by artificial intelligence. He writes, AI can lower the threshold for the use of force, shield people from responsibility, and foster a culture in which the enemy is reduced to a statistic and the victim to collateral damage. So we need to...
Can you think of the girls' school? When they said a collateral damage, the school that was picked by AI. They used AI tech to do all that.
Be on the lookout again against the normalization of war. He especially notes that there's this troubling revival of war as an instrument of international politics, not as a last resort in a defensive position. So as the limitations on war have been eroded, peace seems more, he says, like a fragile interval between conflicts. So we need to use diplomacy. We need to use forgiveness, and AI can be deployed in the service of that, but it shouldn't be deployed in the service of prosecution of war, which will only incentivize it, especially when, armaments stand to be purchased. Okay.
And there's armaments with AI on it, AI guidance, AI this. Again, the AI military. Do you remember about a half a year ago, how many technocrats got promoted in the U.S. military to the top tiers? I think it was 4 guys. They weren't military experience. They were techno bros. So it's all this like that. Has some new channel, email me. Yeah, most of the AI's emails like that are going to be scripted like that. You can usually tell especially if you see too many M spaces.
Also talk about the laws or autonomous weapon systems. There needs to be a clarification of human agency, because if war just gets quicker and impersonal, then it's going to get muddier and muddier and lethaler and lethaler.
Exactly.
Okay. Here we'll talk a little bit about multilateralism, that we're not looking towards a common future. We're regressing as a global community in this regard. And then he'll alert us to the fact that political realism is not the way forward, in the sense that we can't settle for merely armed equilibrium and deterrence. It's false to say that war is inevitable, because spirit of resignation is inimical to the gospel. So he says, peace is not naive. We need to recognize here an opportunity for personal and collective conversion. And I'll talk about the need to disarm words, build peace through justice, adopt the perspective of victims, cultivate a healthy realism, and revive dialogue and multilateralism. The conclusion, he talks about the incarnation. Christ took our flesh, our weak, our wounded human flesh. He lived our human life, and he did so in efficacious solidarity with us. I'll talk about the mystical body, how we're meant to be incorporated in an organic union in which we each play our role. And then he'll talk about the Blessed Virgin Mary as giving us a model of prayer. So then he comes back to that original image of the building site, right? So we're to be architects in the construction site of our time, building up walls for Jerusalem, not walls of war, but walls of peace, or which ensure lasting peace in the holy city, which is bound ultimately for God Most High. let's say a word about how this document might be received. Obviously, people are going to be out there saying all manner of things, can't see into the future, but these are some things that I anticipate might cause a little chatter. As to the first chapter, I think that some folks might say that it's too deferent to the world's competence, whereas other folks might say that it's too critical of the world's competence. This is a constant tension in the church's description of her relationship to the world, specifically the modern and contemporary world. And I think you see a tone shift in the last 100 years where it's a little more stormy and then it's a little more lighthearted. This document in general is pretty stormy, but it starts on a high note, or it starts on a kind of positive note as a way by which to say, hey, let's host a dialogue. So we'll see how it goes. And then with respect to the second chapter, here in enunciating the principles of Catholic social teaching, this idea of foundations and principles, I haven't encountered that previously in the tradition. Also, I made mention of the fact that when you list 4, you typically go dignity of the human person, common good, subsidiarity, and solidarity. Here, we had that list of 6 broken up into foundations and then to principles. But instead of participation, which got mentioned apropos of subsidiarity, you had social justice. When people hear social justice, obviously they think lots of things. In the church's tradition, social justice really gets used beginning in the 1960s, and it kind of stands in for, at first, like our care for the common good, general justice, but then that gets taken up by solidarity. And then it comes to mean something like distributive justice. If you don't care about those things, or at least those definitions and concepts, don't worry. Fact of the matter is, I think that this is just a different way of setting forward the perennial teaching, but sometimes, people are like, things have changed. So don't worry. With respect to chapter 3, here's one of my favorite words. There are going to be some people who say it's obscurantist, which is to say it's against progress or it's against learning. So this insistence throughout the document that we should judge, that we should regulate, that we should use well the technology into which we initiate subsequent generations. I think there are going to be people who react strongly to that because they're like, there's no way. Which maybe, as far as realpolitik goes, that's an accurate assessment of what's going to unfold. But this document is trying to hold off that type of cynicism at arm's length and inform people with a gospel message. Also, when it says there's got to be checks on the market, there are a lot of people out there who say you just have to let the market ride because it's the best way in which to increase wealth for all. But the church has always insisted, and you see this in St. John Paul II, especially Laborum Exertion, Solicitudo Rei Socialis, Centesimus Annus, that the market doesn't take into account all of the pertinent factors. And so we have to account for that. With respect to chapter 4, the mention of de-skilling, some people are going to be probably critical about that because it's like every time you develop a new technology, there's a kind of necessary de-skilling. So when we went from an oral culture to a written culture, obviously we lost some capacity for memory, but nevertheless, we got all these cool things that you get with a written culture, like civilization. So people just say, de-skilling is a necessary feature of progress. But I think here the document's insistence on principles for discernment is helpful. Like, what are we losing? What are we gaining? Are we refining human agency, or are we in fact replacing human agency? With respect to the 5th, my suspicion is that some people are going to be critical of the way in which the document talks about the UN. So it talks about the UN in largely laudatory terms throughout the document. People are going to be like, wait, doesn't the UN support abortion? Which it definitely does. And there's one point at which the document acknowledges that the UN is not necessarily on the rightest of right paths, but its tone tends to be largely encouraging. I think it's a recognition that here's an effort to come together in a globalized economy or in a globalized world. And it's an effort. Obviously, it's a very imperfect effort. So I think we should take.
I'm not blasting Father Pine. He's a very solid. He's good. Or someone's going to say, "Oh, Steve's like." He's good. Notice he said global economy. When did Leo put Rerum Novarum out? After Pius, obviously after Pius IX. What happened after Pius IX happened? You had 1848, the revolutions, 1848, and you had the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s of centralization, the unification, the unifications of all these areas: Germany, France, Italy. You name it, Spain, United States, in a sense, after the war. That was the end of the Federal Republic. In turn, it went from the United States to the United State, because everyone in here, most people think we're one nation. So that goes into the whole communist idea of one nation. Why do you think Marx was for Lincoln? All this stuff. You just look at what happened to Italy. The North was fighting the South, trying to unify all that. We talked about this. You have to have you have to have these 19th century centralization movements to get to that level. For World War I, for World War II. If there's no unification, there's no World War I, there's no World War II. Now we're in globalization. That's the next step after centralization is globalization. And that's where we get all this. You see the global economy, you see the global thing, you see all these talks. We're in the global market. You see Trump's new idea of the board for peace. All these global guys paying in money that are just different things. Everyone's looking at global market. If we're doing something in South Carolina, how in the world does that have to do anything with that? China? How's if somebody doing anything in Georgia? How in the world does that have anything to do with someone in Australia? You see what I mean? Nothing should be like that. You got there goes the World Economic Forum. Now you have global pandemics as well, global responses, global shutdowns, global this, global that, global solutions. You brought up subsidiarity a couple times. That's the main thing. It's a Catholic idea. Get down, cut it off. You got to go from the globe all the way down to you. Get out of that global thing. But everyone loves the global thing. Got to get out of the global thing. That's the solution for all this nonsense is decentralization. But was the main thing everyone kept hearing today? Leo XIV makes historic apology for Vatican's role in legitimizing slavery. When in the world did we legitimize slavery? Yeah, and if you get I got this book at Sensitive Fidelity Press, Idol of a Nation. I get into all that. It's not that big. It's less than the encyclical. It's 130 pages. It's 100 pages less than the encyclical. You probably if anybody could read that today, you could read this one. And it gets in all that. I'm doing a thing with Dr. Deep State on the book in a couple of days. But yes, I get into decentralization. You have 1848, the revolution of 1848, which led to what happened after the revolution of 1848. The Holy Face apparition came in 1849, Epiphanies, January 6th, 1849. Pius is in Gaeta, in exile. The 48ers, they ended up coming to the Lincoln administration. They were generals in the Union Army, all that stuff. What is digital currency first step? Anyway, all right, let's get to it. AP, Leo XIV makes a story, blah, 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 blah. Apologized on Monday for the Holy See's role in legitimizing slavery and having failed to condemn it for centuries. That's news to me. Past popes have apologized for Christians' involvement in transatlantic slave trade, but no pope has ever publicly acknowledged, much less apologized for, the role of past popes played in giving European sovereigns explicit authority to subject and enslave infidels. You know where this is going. I've heard people in the alt media tell me this because I try to hang in that crowd to learn more of this stuff because you're not going to get this from Catholic guys. But it was that idea. Hold on, I'll just read more of this thing. Leo raised the slave trade in relation to what he called the new forms of slavery and colonialism that the digital revolution is fueling. Well, you got that in Africa, which led the slave trade. You can't bring up the slave trade without bringing up that the Africans pretty much ran it. They made a ton of money off it. They were upset if anybody got out of it, and they pretty much, they were the HQ for it. They were mad at England for getting out of it. In the Declaration, Jefferson writes that one of the train of abuses was the slave trade. The Confederate States of America banned the slave trade. The slave trade was no one was for the slave trade. The Africans were for the slave trade, but you're not going to hear that. No one ever wants to bring that up. They made bucos. There's actually a book. This is not saying that slavery was all. It was, no one's. Steve's fortune. There was a book they interviewed a lot of the Africans that came over. They were saying they were happy they got out of Africa because they were going to either be eaten, enslaved, or killed. So they thought it was better for them to come over here. And if you read about the slave narrative, which Jeb Bush writes about in the book Defending Dixie, you'll see it's a lot of stuff that you didn't hear of. I mean, people still think you got whipped all the time. No, people didn't whip. Now they did find out the thing was the northern people would whip them because they didn't know how to live with them. That was literally the thing. They didn't know how to live. If you owned it, if you had a slave, that was called property. It was like having a BMW. You took care of that. People gave him the best hospital, best doctors, best food. They fed him. There's a guy not too far from here a couple months ago. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Because no one's going to believe it. He owned 3 miles of land as a slave. They just turned into a park a few years ago. No, I'm sorry, not a few years ago, a couple of months ago. So, where is it at? So look where, excellent. By the way, you know who loved Dixie? Lincoln. Where's it at? Kyle Busch. Oh, I didn't go far enough. That's what it was. Oh yeah, South Australia is making a illegal abortion illegal. That's good. I forgot about that. Oh yeah, I didn't go through all that because I put in the strawberries. That was it. Where's it at? There it is.
Descendants of the first Black man to own property in Gaston County say they are humbled by a park that's been built to honor him. Ransom Hunter is legendary in Mount Holly. Our Ken Lemon has the new dedication to his legacy in a place called Freedom.
This grainy picture is the only picture of Ransom Hunter. He was born into slavery, but in this picture, he is standing on the property he owned. Today, his great-grandson stood near that same spot.
Proud, humble, very emotional.
Hunter's relatives say these bricks were part of his well. In 1860, he owned this property and so much more.
From this point here, 3 miles any way you looked, it was his property.
The home vanished over the years, but the city of Mount Holly built this park here in Hunter's name.
It was modeled after his actual house. So the front of the playground looks like the front of the house that used to sit on this property.
The park just off Hawthorne Street isn't quite complete yet. There will be educational signs put on a walking trail around the playground.
We're going to tell the story of Ransom Hunter and the family and this property.
The signs will tell the story of Hunter's work as a blacksmith and how his land became a homestead for Black people.
He brought people in that for doctors, barbers, freedom.
The park is at the heart of the community many Black people still call freedom.
It means the world to me.
Mount Holly City Councilman Ivory Craig Jr. grew up in this community. He walked by this area on the way to school. Now there's a park here where his children will play and learn about Ransom Hunter.
You all heard that, right? 1860s. 1860, the man owned 3 miles of land each way. Yeah, well, yeah, blacksmith. If you again, you get Jeb's book. It talks about how a lot of them had jobs, blacksmiths, whatever you name it. Some slaves got land given to them by the master for them to grow food and sell. You're not taught that, are you? This man, 1860s. When was 1860? Was before the war. Had 3 miles of land, all directions in Gaston County. You know where I live? I live in Gaston County in North Carolina, just west of Charlotte, Gaston County. It wasn't Cotton State. South Carolina is technically Cotton State's down, but still, that's Dixie for you. Black American Catholics, activists, and scholars have long called for the Holy See to atone for its role in the colonial era trade in human beings beyond generic apologies for the involvement in individual questions. Okay, now slavery in the States wasn't like slavery in Brazil, the Caribbean, things like that. Much different, obviously. You saw the guy. He owned 3 miles of land. It is impossible not to feel deep sorrow when contemplating the immense suffering and humiliation endured by so many, in a stark contrast to the immeasurable dignity of persons inflicted, loved, and infinitely loved by the Lord. For this, in the name of the church, I sincerely ask for pardon. Shannon D. Williams, historian at the University of Dayton and author of the 2022 history of American Black Catholic nuns' subversive habits, welcomed the apology as a monumental step towards the kind of essential truth-telling and reparation that many Catholics have prayed and worked to witness. I wonder what that was about. The Catholic Church has never been an innocent bystander in history of white supremacy. Who said that? Black Catholics have waited a long time to hear the Vatican speak honestly about the Church's leading roles in the transatlantic slave trade. and chattel slavery, and thus by extension enduring system of anti-black racism in the world today. You know, the first black slave was owned by a black man from Africa. England in Africa was that was after the split with King Henry. So it have been the Anglicans, right? We're not going to, and then are we not going to talk about the Baltimore thing, Baltimore, Ireland, when the Moors definitely weren't white, went up to England, Ireland, and took a bunch of Irish people and brought them back down to Africa. Mostly all these, like when you hear about pirates and things like that, they're all Muslim. I remember reading the black slave owners were a thing, but I never thought it was a real. Yeah, no. William Ellison was the richest man in the Confederacy. He was a free black man. He owned other slaves. His sons were in the artillery. You can look him up. He created the Confederate money. Centuries of legitimizing slavery for European colonizers. The Vatican insists that it always upheld dignity of human beings as children of God, but a series of 15th century directives from the Vatican, here we go, authorized Portuguese sovereigns to conquer Africa and the Americas and enslave non-Christians. 1452, for example, I hear this quite often from some. Pope Nicholas V issued the papal bull Dum Diversas, which gave the Portuguese king and his successors the right to invade, conquer, fight, and subjugate, and take all possessions, including land of Saracens and pagans and other infidels and enemies of the name of Christ anywhere. The bull also gave the Portuguese permission to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery. That bull and another issued 3 years later, Romanus Pontifex, formed the basis of the doctrine of discovery. Again, I've heard this many times. You guys have never gotten rid of the doctrine of discovery. Good grief. And when you return it, they don't listen. The theory that legitimized the colonial era seizure of land in Africa and the Americas. Nicholas V's permissions to the Portuguese were confirmed or renewed by Pope Calixtus III in 1456, Sixtus IV in 1481, Leo X in 1514, according to the Reverend Christian Kellerman, a Jesuit priest and author of All Oppression Shall Cease, the History of Slave Abolition in the Catholic Church. Spanish kings received the rights for the Americas. 2023, the Vatican formally repudiated doctrine of discovery, but it never formally rescinded, abrogated, or rejected the bulls themselves. The Vatican insists that the latter bull, Sublimis Deus of 1537, reaffirmed that indigenous peoples shouldn't be deprived of the liberty or the possession of their property and weren't to be enslaved. Holy See, late to condemn slavery, Leo says. I don't know what you mean. There's plenty on there that they condemned it. In acknowledging 15th century bull, Leo wrote, already in modern period, the Apostolic See of Rome is responding to requests, blah, blah, blah. Leo said it wasn't possible to judge morality of decisions to today's standards, but Leo said the church must firmly conform all forms of trafficking related to the digital technological revolution if we want to avoid the need. Again, you got human trafficking going on right now. You have African kids being enslaved to collect cobalt out of the dirt right now. That's going on right now in Africa. The slavery in China, there's slavery in half the world right now, but mostly people want to just focus on the African slave trade. That's why that one lady was in England that mentioned about Africa. I'll start apologizing when Africa apologizes, and they went silence. Leo's own family history and past apologies. Kellerman, a scholar, welcomed Leo's apology, but said more needs to be done to further acknowledge how the Catholic Church legitimized and expanded slavery. When the heck did the Catholic Church expanded slavery? Pope Leo has strengthened the moral credibility of the church with his admission and apology today. He told the AP. Scholar must quibbles, blah, blah, blah. During 1985 and visited Cameroon, JP2 asked forgiveness of Africans for the slave trade on behalf of Christians who participated in it, but not the popes. They tell the, hey, why don't you Africans apologize too? You guys were selling your own. They warring tribes cannibalized, ate, through, subjugated, imprisoned, made slaves, and then traded them. Tragedy of Civilizations called itself Christian. According to the genealogical research published by Henry Louis Gates, the Jr., 17 of Leo's American ancestors were black, listed in census records as mulatto, black, Creole, or a person of color. His family tree includes slaveholders and enslaved peoples, Gates wrote in the New York Times. Okie dokie. Where's it at? There's a little link. Leo XIV disclosed TV apologized for the church's role in slavery, wound in the Christian memory, and also warns about new forms of colonialism, including the collection and control of health data. Again, I don't know why he brought it up in this, because everything else got focused on this. When he goes after technocracy, goes after this, go after that, why bring this up? Yeah, I mean, there's so many doomsday. There's so many questions on that. It's like, why did you even bring that up? And these Mark Taylor, then he's condemning God as sinful. Abraham had slaves. God instructed ancient Hebrews to take slaves. Only moral teaching on slavery was the fair treatment. That is actually 100% correct. The teaching was fair treatment. Where is that at? Here's American Reform. This is a misleading characterization. The Catholic Church has never condemned slavery absolutely, nor can she, and she has always understood it as the consequence of the fall of man and a legitimate punishment. Scripture in both the Old and New Testament, popes, saints, and theologians all witness this. The Holy Office ruled in 1886 that slavery, considered absolutely, was neither opposed to divine or natural law. The same ruling affirms that provided the slaves were deprived of their liberty by a just title laid out by theologians and canonists, Catholics may lawfully buy and sell slaves provided no injury is done to the rights of the latter. Catholic saints have held slave popes and religious orders have done the same. As for the teaching of Leo XIII and in Plurimus, he is merely following St. Thomas and identifying slavery as contrary to the first intention of nature. After the fall of man, however, slavery is to be seen as a legitimate punishment. He notes paragraph 3 that slavery is wholly opposed to the first intention of nature, but in paragraph 7 of the same encyclical, he quotes Saints Peter and Paul affirm the legitimacy of slavery and the second intention of nature, and urges slaves to be subject to good and cruel masters alike. He just goes on. Let's see, he goes chattel slavery, according to properly understood, according to St. Thomas. That's two council, which involves treating man like a mere beast. This is not a legitimate form of servitude and has always been condemned by the church. That said, there is a legitimate sense in which cattle is applied to slavery and is listed. St. Thomas explains the slave is his master's cattle and matters superadded to nature. But in natural things there are equal. Wherefore, in things pertaining to natural acts, a slave can be marrying, give another person power over the body without his master's consent. And actually, that you look at how the treatment in the States were. That's not what happened. Now, it may happen in like other ways where like St. Peter Claver was and things like that, where he went after things. I didn't know the churches. I don't know why church even after apologies. That's 100% true too. Like you look at it, like when Mississippi, the whole thing with they're going after Mississippi for being racist. They made him change the flag, change this, change that, and they're still going after him. They move the goalpost all the time. Let's see. I have another one on that. I thought. I guess I don't. Anyway, here's that was all that. But if you look in, church was the first Western institution to condemn slavery, and Sicut Didum, yes, which condemned the enslavement of Canary Islanders in 1435, Sublimis Deus in 1537, which condemned the enslavement of Native Americans. Finally, in Supremo in 1837, which condemned all slavery. Yeah, if you get the book by Patrick Madrid called Pope Fiction, there's an entire chapter on this when he goes through all these papal bulls and rulings that they did. Queen Isabella, the Catholic of Spain, wrote about the people in that Spain found in the Americas, saying they are supposed to be protected, not enslaved, educated, and brought to Christ, be treated as children that needed to be brought, children of Spain, that she was like the mother having to bring up the children, condemned any kind of slavery like that. The only thing you could say about the church was that Nicholas V issuing authorized Portugal to conquer Africa in the Crusade. Yeah, I guess okay. Which authorized Portugal to conquer Africa in the Crusade. These had provisions of forced and prisoner reward to work, and the Portuguese said got so enslaved anyone. Very true. That was part of that. This Jesse had to go. Did any American bishops speak against slavery before the American Civil War? I mean, Southern independence. They always had to bring that up. Yeah, here's Jay. I wrote a 50-page thesis on this. Archbishop of New York rightly pointed out the hypocrisy of northern factory owners forcing the poor and hated the Irish to fight against in the South. Remember, that's why the Knights of Columbus who got established, because they were so bad, poor conditions, pretty much enslaved the Irish. Bishop of Charlottesville advocated for laws and reforms for treatment of slaves, but also served as Bishop of Cincinnati, who was also condemned by the Pope, as he taught that war was justified to end slavery. All the bishops opposed the election of Lincoln, and as Republicans were the most vehement anti-Catholics and were previously burning churches and were for slavery. So yeah, again, it was just, anyways. Moving on, modernity, $150 humanoid robot house cleaning service threatens to undercut maid services. Just looking at the chat, see if anybody else look out. Let's leave it to our hearts. Why can't we use infidels anymore? It's a good idea. Good question. Elon Musk says the future of medicine will be completely digital.
RNA. And I think like the sort of, we're going from a situation where medicine has been analog, where we kind of like just find drugs kind of by accident most of the time, like finding sticks in the forest that seem like this stick seems like a useful club, type of thing. It's quite primitive how we found medication in the past. Now, but once you can, and since we can now construct synthetic RNA. You can effectively think of medicine, the future of medicine, as being digital. Like, so if you just know what to program into that synthetic RNA strand, you can basically, I think, cure almost anything. I guess
remember, they're the injection, and then they can program the mRNA tech. They've been talking about this for 5-6 years at least. Good point on that. Prison, that's still technically that today. And if someone goes to prison, you technically become a slave. They make you work. They make you do this. They do that to you. So slavery technically is not ended in the States because you have the prison fields in here. Here's France bans Zins and other nicotine pouches, with violators facing 5 years in prison and a shocking fine. Here's Kentucky statesman saying the digital prison walls are going up around us and most Americans can't see it. The blaze, license plate readers, or surveillance. The number of AI cameras in these United States is shocking.
Epstein files. Congressman, we're almost out of time. Couple more here. I want to ask about the Epstein files. As you've noted, the speech and debate clause actually protects you from being prosecuted for whatever you say on the floor of the House. You have named names in the Epstein files in the past. Can we expect you to name more names in the coming weeks and months?
Yes. Todd Blanche is violating the law. There's still millions of files they haven't released. We know from talking to the victims' lawyers that their own 302 forms haven't been released. We know that files have been over-redacted. I have released at least 3 names of billionaires who are implicated in this. I don't think it's possible to get to convictions with Todd Blanche at the top and with the FBI director, Kash Patel, at the top, because they've effectively both perjured themselves by saying that there's nobody else in the files. Even Melania doesn't believe that. The First Lady knows that Jeffrey Epstein didn't act alone. And here's the great thing, Kristen. Whether I'm in Congress or not, the Epstein Files Transparency Act is a law, and it goes on for years. So if we can't get this Attorney General and this FBI director to do the right thing, the next ones who take those seats are obligated by law to release the files that these individuals are not releasing now.
And education-wise, Our Lady of Victory School, olvs.org. If you're looking at homeschool, check out olvs.org. Homeschooling, 100% traditional Catholic, trusted curriculum, 45 years of experience. Check them out if you're looking or interested in homeschooling. Enhanced games to sports. Enhanced games. You heard about this? This is just nuts. The enhanced games backfires as just one world record broken during controversial Las Vegas event. Okay, what this is was organizers behind a heavily criticized competition had boldly promised a new era of sporting domination, insisting the use of testosterone, HGH, human growth hormone, and specialized steroids would shatter long-standing athletic records. Huge financial incentives were also on the table, with competitors offered a staggering $1 million bonus if they managed to break an official world record during the Vegas showcase. Yet after the days of hype surrounding the called Doping Olympics, only one athlete managed to cash in. And I'm pretty sure he wasn't even a juiced up guy. Greek swimmer Kristen Goswin was the sole competitor to land the seven-figure jackpot after producing a record-breaking swim in the men's 50-meter freestyle. I guess he did have it. He was juiced a little bit, I guess. He came close to the butterfly, intensity week. Yeah, here's Enhanced Games launch in 2026 as the first Dope Olympics.
Two with Hunter Armstrong. It's a fantastic start, and now starting to spin, and Armstrong's finest is his finish. He knows he likes to finish hard, just got to keep it straight.
It's Armstrong and Ryan coming down the stretch.
That time, 23.55 we're after.
Armstrong
it was
ahead.
Hunter who won.
It's going to be quick.
He won first place in the men's 50-meter backstrokes while competing against athletes using all the juiced up. He did not juice up. So there was the Enhanced Games launch. Athletes openly allowed to use steroids, PEDs, anything illegal. Anything is legal. Founded on the idea that human limits are artificial and drugs unlock the real ceiling. Kind of like this transhumanism junk going on. So they're trying it in sports in a covert way, in a sense. Hunter Armstrong shows up, two-time Olympic gold medalist, a former world record holder, refuses every drug, signs up is supposed to be, signs up as the only non-enhanced swimmer in his field, faces a pool of athletes juiced, wins, walks away with $250,000. Enhanced Games runners beef after steroid-free sprinter wins. So another guy who did not juice beat the guys that juiced up. Fred Kearney of the U.S. wins the men's 100-meter final in the Enhanced Games in Vegas. The White House mandates app with built-in Trump worship. So apparently, like, it tells you, you have to sign up. The White House is requiring all government-issued phones to have an app installed featuring a constant drip of praise for the president and pre-written messages of adoration. Yeah, that's a good one. It's like they're so ready to flat out tell the truth about modern man being slaves to the technocrats, but the headlines are still stuck on white man bad. I'm telling you, Cafe, read Jeb Bush's book on defending Dixie, because he writes, he puts punches. It's called the slave narratives, that they interviewed these guys, interviewed them to tell them how life was. I'm telling you, after reading about 10 of them, I'm going, you know what? I'm ready to sign up myself. How many days? people that go to work at 8 to 5 jobs. You're enslaved to your boss. You got to get up at 6, go drive in every day, in and back. You have to. You're enslaved by your cell phone, all that stuff. You're reading accounts of guys going fishing in the middle of the day, and you're told by your school that these guys were living the worst lives humanly possible, and they're going fishing in midday and having fiddle contests with their masters, and there's a party, and people are living together, caring for each other. You're like, you talk about being lied to. I was reading that going, you talk about being lied to. So it feels like, well, yeah, I don't know. I saw this a couple times. It was actually, I think it was Drudge Report had this. Here's Don Jr. married a one of Jeffrey Epstein's key enablers in latest MAGA draw dropper. Because remember, Trump said he wasn't going to go to the wedding because he couldn't because of the war. Ended up going that the the app is real. It ended up not going because is an Epstein connected marriage. The CIA accused of using Ancestry and 23andMe to hunt down alien bloodlines in millions of DNA tests. Like, it just doesn't stop, does it? Chess boxing is a hybrid blood sport taking New York City, by storm. Real punches to the face, no gimmicks about it. So it's a contest between brains and brawn. So I guess you box and then you play it. You put a chess move. See, you're going to have to win in boxing. Just need to play chess better than you. So yeah, they box and then they play chess. I've seen, make up, people, they used to joke about stuff like that, but I guess it's now legit. The world is heading towards a financial crisis. The state of U.S. politics has left us ill-prepared. You don't say. The inflated Dow and all that. So like Wizards, Chess, and Harry Potter, but idiots are the piece. I've never watched Harry Potter, but that's just funny. That's fun to. That's a good line. By the way, if you have speaking of tech, iCatholic Mobile, switch over from your cell phone provider, T-Mobile, Sprint, all those guys who pay for helping their people that work for them get abortions, employees get abortions. Switch over to iCatholic Mobile, it'll pretty much be the same price. And he actually gives free cell service to religious and priests.
150 years of majestic American independence, something.
Yes, defending Dixie's land by Jeff.
But it's only right that
Isaac is
first we remember the immense sacrifice that has been brought to us and this momentous anniversary year. That's what it is. It's a momentous year. Before we hail the founding, we honor the fallen. Before we celebrate the triumph, we pay the tribute. Before we crown the victory, we count the cost. Today, we are reminded that there could be no 4th of July without America's armed forces, and there could be no Independence Day without Memorial Day.
I don't know how, because you had an Independence Day, and Memorial Day didn't show up till 1866. Or 1868 if you want to do the northern version, but 1866 was the first Memorial Day. So technically, yeah, I mean, in the Southern independence line, yeah, he took independence away. By the way, Jesse James is a hero because he was like, you know what, we can't fight him legally anymore, so we'll fight him illegally. He's the Catholic Father was killed by Trump's rally in Butler. Yeah. Yeah, Lou's right. Yes, for that book, because worried about being canceled, he uses the pen name Isaac Bishop. Washington insiders are using secret pentagram intelligence to rig prediction markets per 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes exposes a massive insider trading ring making millions and millions by betting on highly classified U.S. military operations in Iran with a 98% win rate. And somehow that's the ones going to jail. CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin warns crash is coming, but CEOs are too scared to stand up to Trump. Learn how to grow your own food, please. Oil slides as ships move towards the Hormuz. Shippers remain cautious on production facilities, and inventories will take time to be restored. Yeah, like months, maybe even years. Trump links normalization ties with Israel to Iran peace deal, because you thought there was a peace deal. No, there was no peace deal. There's war is about to happen soon. It was someday. There's supposed to be a war going on. No one has a clue anymore. Maybe it's a distraction for something else, which they're all distractions. Trump, all countries in the Middle East must sign diplomatic deal with Israel. U.S. president calls for Arab and Muslim leaders to join Abraham Accords to push for an end to Iran. Or to Iran war. Yeah, words matter. Sorry. I was like, wow, he said that? No, Iran war. Woo. It's late. It's almost tomorrow. 1 minute to tomorrow. Iran says no deal imminent despite progress in talks with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said early Monday that an agreement could be finalized today, though he cautioned if talks fail, Washington could find another way to resolve the situation. Speaking of which, let me see if anything has happened before we go to the last couple things. Jamie Jones Perfect Color, nothing. Mossad, what Mossad's trending. Nothing changes. Oh yeah. Well, Wanjura, there's another good book. If you want to read a great book just for fun, The Yankee Prom by Clyde Wilson. Very cool. Southwell Publishing. You can get it on Amazon too, but Southwell Publishing has it. Southwell also has Defending Dixie in it. And you know what? Just go to Southwell and get Defending Dixie, Yankee Problem, South Was Right, Reconstruction, Punished by Poverty, the Washington's KKK. That's a good start for right there. Anything by Clyde Wilson would be good too. You seen this? This is nuts. Anybody just go like, anybody just would gasp? Fear unlocked. So a paraglider was hit by a Cessna 172 near Zell AMC, Austria on Saturday, but deployed her emergency parachute and landed safely. The plane pilot also landed safely after the mid-air collision. Yeah, woe is right. In sports.
Doesn't lay up. So I'm going to do my best to remain calm right now. But I have seen it all. I cannot believe this. Purple doesn't lay up the wrong way. And then white on the way back. Honey, you're going the wrong way. So white is going this way right now. This is real. Purple gets the rebound. They take a layup the wrong way. And then white. This is astonishing.
I saw that go. I have to play that. This is astonishing. I'll play it again. Why
So
not?
I'm going to do my best to remain calm right now. But I have seen it all. I cannot believe this. Purple doesn't lay up the wrong way. And then white on the way back. Honey, you're going the wrong way. So white is going this way right now. This is real. Purple gets the rebound. They take a layup the wrong way. And then white. This is astonishing. This is an AI.
This is an AI. I had to rub my eyes first when I saw like, did I see that for real? This day in history, 1925, Oscar Wilde goes to prison. 2023, Stuart Rose, leader of American military militia group, the Oath Keepers, sentenced to time January 22nd. 2020, George Floyd. Remember all that ordeal? That was 2020. 2011, you know, the Rona did not work on any of those protesters. 2011, the last episode of the Oprah Winfrey Show aired. 2017, George Lucas space opera film Star Wars was released. 1969, Midnight Cowboy won the only X-rated film to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. I had no idea. John Voight was in that too. I didn't know anything about it. 1961, in a speech before Congress, U.S. President John F. Kennedy committed the U.S. to land a man in the moon by the end of the decade. 1946, Abdullah I, ruler of Transjordan, proclaimed himself king. 1935, Babe Ruth hit his 714th and last home run of his career, retired later that year. 1935, American track and field standout Jesse Owens set 3 world records and equaled one later in Ann Arbor, Michigan. 1889, aircraft designer Igor Sikorsky was born in Kiev, Ukraine, the Russian Empire. 1878, American entertainer Bill Bojangles Robinson, best known for his dancing roles with Shirley Temple in the 1930s, was born in Richmond, Virginia. 1810, having severed ties with Spain and the viceroyal government, the Municipal Council of Buenos Aires established an autonomous government. And in 1787, the U.S. Constitutional Convention opened in Philadelphia. And if you know anything about this, they didn't come there to start a new constitution. They were there to amend the Articles of Confederation. And Madison, those guys kind of put a little thing over their heads, hoodwink them a little bit. If you get the piece by Mike Church at was a Fame of Our Fathers, it's a docudrama. Audio docudrama, hours long. It goes through all of it. He went through all the writings. I think it was in Minnesota, had all the debates. He went through all that and made a docudrama of the entire thing. They were there to amend the Articles of Confederation. And what happened is they ended up coming up with a new government, the U.S. Constitution. So again, you can change this government when you want, really. Anyway, but there was a thing called here and read. Anyway, have a great rest of the night, guys. Thanks for putting up this long 2-hour show, a little bit different than most because the Encyclical, obviously. Oh yeah, like, subscribe, show notes, all that jazz. The link for all the links underneath are in the show notes. God bless you. Have a great rest of the night. We're doing something. I told somebody that did something on Monday. Today is Monday. The last show on Friday, we talked about whatever I talked about was on Monday. Woo! Anyways, have a great rest of the night. I'm doing a show with Judson tomorrow or Tuesday night on the book that we did, Herbs That Heal. I had to look at it. What is the name of the book? I got 3 books over here that have my name on it now. Anyway, have a great rest of the night. God bless and talk to you. I will see you tomorrow and next Clown Plans Wednesday. Where we at? Wrong button. Where's my thank you button? Thank you guys. Have a great night. God bless.